1, 2, 3, come on!
Well, hello there, and welcome back. As always, I'm your host with the flow, and this is Let's Think Geek. For those of you coming back, welcome back. Always a pleasure to have you. Hope to keep seeing you in the future. For those of you that are new here, welcome. It's wonderful to have you as well. Hope you stick around. Go back and check out what we're all about here. Hope you enjoy the show. And again, thanks so much for finding me. So, today, as I'm sure you noticed from the thumbnail and the title of the video, the topic is Star Wars versus Star Trek. You know, that the age-old geek debate, which is better? You know, who done it better? Who copied who? And we're going to get into that just a smidge today, and maybe not necessarily in the way a lot of people would inherently think of, but it's a fun little thought experiment. So, as is obvious and is well known around here, your boy's a Star Wars fan. Die hard through and through. But I enjoy Star Trek. Always have, always liked it for what it has to offer me and how I've, interpreted that in my lifetime. But I've always been more partial to Star Wars. And over the course of time, I've probably had a variant of this debate 1,000 times at this point of, well, which is better? Well, defend yourself. Defend why you like this. And at the end of the day, what it really boils down to is everyone likes what they like. Star Wars just hit harder for me. It hit different for me than Star Trek did. And for other people, Star Trek hits harder. It hit different. It touched those right chords, hit the right places for them, that it resonated better. It had a better connection for them than it did for me. Just like Star Wars had a better connection for me than Star Trek did. But why is that? What about them makes them so fundamentally different? And honestly, quite a bit, and at the same time, not nearly as much as people want to pretend. We'll go with the base observations that should be made is that they're almost two entirely different genres approaching things in two very different ways, down to the storytelling style and how they're unpacked, how they're even presented in the dialogue style, so on and so forth. On one hand, you have Star Wars, which is, quite frankly, a space opera. It's not sci-fi. It's not meant to be a science fiction. It's a space opera. And that lends to a much higher level of drama. That lends to more fantasy and elements of whimsy. You get glorious space wizards we call Jedi, and they're opposite warlocks, the Sith. But at the end of the day, it is that very dramatized version of space. It's a very playful, fantastic way of looking at it. Whereas Star Trek is a sci-fi. It's a science fiction. And one of the things about science fiction is it tends to ground itself somewhat more in reality and use more tent poles of reality and critical thinking to ground it back into that sci-fi versus the full-on, full-blown fantasy realm. And that's kind of a big distinction, and could be a big part of why they resonate so very differently, and why the fan groups can seem so diametrically opposed to each other in ways. Star Trek is for the critical thinker, in broad strokes. It's not saying that every Star Trek fan is a higher critical thinker. I'll come for you and I'll destroy your pretty little show around you. Don't play me. But I digress. We're here for peace and harmony right now. People that enjoy Star Trek tend to be a little bit more critical thinkers. They tend to approach the world a little bit more from a logical, philosophical standpoint. They like the reality of it. They like the questions posed. And that's a wonderful thing. Whereas most Star Wars fans enjoy the effectively giant flight of fancy, the anythingness of it, the drama of it, how big and over the top it is. Star Wars is extra, guys. It is so over the top. Down to, their soldiers couldn't even be normal. They've got to come up with a new soldier for every movie, and some people hate it. I love it. But that's why you get different stormtroopers, is those flights of fantasy. It's a new way of imagining it. It's why they work to keep Star Wars so fresh, where Star Trek tends to stay more in its it's stylization. Sci-fi versus space opera. They're not really the same thing. Very similar. Both take place in space, both have lasers, but at the end of the day, they're delivering their message two very different ways. And that's a great thing because that gives more people opportunity to engage in fantasy and in geek culture in a way that they like. I enjoy the logic of Star Trek. I enjoy for lack of a better word, the real world psychology and philosophy and principles that'll. Oh, you dirty little dog. Got a little husky that's decided, I'll shake your camera for you. Gotta love when you win, right? Back on track, though. Maybe, if I can remember my track. Star Trek offers a lot more real-world philosophy and psychology and ability to kind of grapple into that logic. And again, that's a beautiful thing. That's a great way for some people to approach the world. I enjoy that quite a bit myself. Star Wars offers that through a little bit more of a dressed-up fantasy language. And I find it really interesting because, I made these comparisons. But as you really sit down and watch it too, and you look at some of the characters, you'll start to see the same characters. You'll start to recognize the same dialogue styles, just simply rephrased. There's a quote from Star Trek, and I'm not going to get it 100% right, so I apologize, but it was, everything is impossible until you do it, or something to about that effect. And it was by one of the captains. I want to say Kirk. I'm probably going to get come for again by Star Trek fans. I'm sorry, guys. I'm trying to do better. I promise I studied for this one, too. It's a lot. It's a lot. I digress. But I read that quote, and I see that scene, and I hear this, everything is impossible until it's not. And, I'm reminded of something from my universe, the Star Wars universe. Do or do not. There is no try. Who, again, it's a line delivered by Yoda, the wise sage master of the universe. And again, in the Star Trek universe, the line is delivered by its wise sage character in that universe. And that's not the only quote that you can draw parallels from. I probably could have made an entire, 10, 15-minute video just going line for line, parallel for parallel. Well, they deliver the same messages. Hope, unity, acceptance, embracing each other, learning, overcoming strife and difficulty. They both explore the same things. They both explore these same concepts of life and struggle and what it is to be a person, what it is to, experience these super situations so that we can relate them more to our own lives in whatever way is appropriate. So, maybe next time you see that Star Wars fan or that Star Trek fan, depending on what universe you are, don't inherently write them off or hate them or discredit their opinion on their universe. Love them for it. They found something that, just like you found, helped them escape, helped them find a way to deal with things, to relax, to simply enjoy it. Who knows why or what about that universe drives them to it. But at the end of the day, as both universes kind of try to teach, it's not worth hating each other over the differences. It's our differences that actually make us beautiful. It's those differences and communicating them and learning how to share those differences that help us all grow as people, as groups, civilizations, cultures, and on and on. It's being willing to explore ourselves, our thoughts, our feelings in the situations we're in and that others are in, and find ways of being empathetic and gaining new understanding. That's what they both universes fundamentally teach. So let's keep the Star Wars versus Star Trek going, but let's do it in good fun, y'all. Let's support each other. Let's learn about each other's universes. Let's find the similarities and ways we can all have a great time with it together. And yeah, that's about what I've got for you guys today. Thank you so much for sticking with me through yet another long geek ramble. We'll be back at it again soon, I'm sure. Don't forget to follow me on Instagram, withtheflow69. Click the like button, subscribe button. It's going to be somewhere around the monitor. Probably not up, because this is YouTube and the video, goes at the top. So it's going to be there-ish or there. You know what you're doing. I trust you. Like, subscribe, hit the bell, do all that fun stuff. Follow me on Instagram. As always, any comments, questions, critiques, got your own thoughts? Throw them in the comment section. Let's talk about it. Get at me. Hope you all have a wonderful day, evening, night, morning, whenever you chose to watch this. Thank you much. Have a good one.